What's up, everyone? Elio here. This time we're playing for world domination. We're trying to win the world championship for North America. As you can see, though, we've got this water region in the middle between North America and Europe, France, where the world championships are, which is not great for us. But with Bubbles' ability, we can just boom change that to a forest region, and now we should be pretty advantaged. So hopefully now someone from North America can take this down. So good luck to Rinku, Trickster, all the marbles. I'm hoping this does the trick. What's up, y'all? Elio here with another video for the Altered Trading Card Game, this time with my first video for the new set, Skybound Odyssey, playing the new Lyra hero, Nadir and Bubbles. When I learned the rules to Altered, before I even played the game, and before the game was actually out, the very first thing that I pitched to my friends was the idea of a throw region deck. I was so hyped on it. The idea was that you would build a deck that just didn't care about one of the region colors. So, for example, Throw Mountain would only care about water and forest. My plan was to dominate the expeditions and just ignore the solo mountain region. I'd have my hero and companion meet by winning every other expedition besides the mountain expedition, and they'd meet on that mountain expedition, kissing, and I'd win the game. So I tried the deck very first thing, and it sucked. But Nadir and Bubbles breathed new life into my idea. When you play two colors, you inherently have strong position on half of the tumults. You have playable position on two more of the tumults, and you have one of the tumults completely unplayable. This was the biggest problem with the throw region decks. But now, even using just one terrain marker, you turn that weak position into a strong position, and now you have a strong, powerful play on 2/3 of the tumults at least. This is the position that we're trying to take advantage of in today's video. Today I will be playing 3 different decks, a light dive into each, just trying to explore conceptually how these throw region builds might play out, and seeing if they can finally work. The first deck we will try is Throw Water. The mountain forest regions have a lot of card returning available. Hather, Niala, and with this in mind, I included the full playset of magical trainings, alongside Ouroboros Inkcaster, something that wouldn't be playable in something like an Auroch list, neither of these cards fitting the requirements that you need to have a strong and consistent Auroch deck. I also have Lyra Signet, being able to provide flexibly some power, disruption, or fuel as needed, and 2 Mighty Djinn uniques provide some fuel so I can make use of all the cards that I'm trying to draw and return to hand. Otherwise, I just have a flexible set of cards available. So let's jump into the first game and see how it does. With this deck and any of the other decks that I play today, you can find the deck list in the description. Okay, playing Throw Water versus Issa and I don't know her companion's name. Okay, so I want to keep the unique because I would like to ramp, and I can play that next turn in response to whatever they do. And with all the resupplying that comes out of Issa like, I think that I want to keep a Tanuki to interact with any of the powerful things in their reserve. But I also want to keep the Haven Sarengar. I end up keeping Sarengar, Mighty Djinn, and Tanuki, but there's maybe an argument to keep like the Martingale and see if we can't get a double advance if they open up with like a landmark or something. But also often, you know, we're going first. They may just have 2 things to play and then the Martingale would just be bad. But we are a little bit punished here as they play a Brass Bug dropship. And our Martingale could have gotten an advance here, but maybe we'll find a use for this Tanuki later on in the game, and we'll feel validated in our choices. We flip green-blue here. Also, now's a good time. Like, I don't like to use, and I'm never going to use one of these abilities on the first turn for one of these lanes. In general, I want to turn one thing into one of my colors, and that thing is going to be the color that I'm throwing. So when I see the water one, I'm going to turn that into either mountain or forest, depending on the circumstances that are currently happening. Getting our Sarengar sabotage here definitely hurts. But I may never use the other Bubbles ability because I can always save it for arena, in which case I can make it so, like, let's say that I turned water to mountain here. I could eventually turn the arena to be only forest, and with my deck can be favored on arena to be fighting only forest. Depending on what's in the deck, you can also potentially turn something behind you into the color that you're throwing. So I could like throw water onto that starting one. And that lets you turn on some of the, if there's 3 of a region visible. Here, I am going to want to turn this water into something at some point, but might as well wait until we're actually fighting over it to see what my hand is at the time before I do so. But I'll open up here with a Tanuki on his 2-mana 3/3, which fights over the colors that we care about. And then I can play my Nymph in the other lane. They are getting lots of resupply value out, and they resupply this unique Merlin, which is pretty big, but not super concerning. At this point in the game, we don't need the Starfish, and with all the colors that we have, it does seem like it would be good to turn this water into Mountain. We've got 7 mana, which means we can go 3/5/7 or 3/5/7. We do have mana for the Tanuki. I'd rather save the Nymph in response to wherever he's pressuring. We're in a very strong position to be able to double advance this turn. So I'll open with the Tanuki. Well, I guess I'm not going to have that choice either way. They're going to sabotage the Nymph. I'll match their power, and hopefully with these 2/3 power for 2 mana plays, we'll be able to get at least a single advance, but likely a double advance as well. And indeed, they don't try to match us there. So instead, they try to take the advantage, and we end up taking the advantage, giving us a double advance going into the next turn with a ton of good plays likely available to us. They do have this Puppeteer, which is kind of our arch nemesis here. We don't get a great draw in Signet and Sticky Shroom, so we'll keep both. Rather than allow myself to get sabotaged, though, I am going to just play out the Contortionist. Alternatively, I could play Sticky Shroom first, and then with a resupply, I could make that Shroom bigger with the Signet, giving it up to 4 power. But I'm new to the set. I expect things like Armor Jammer out of Issaray, and I'd rather spread my power into 2 lanes if I can. So I'll open up with the Contortionist. I will eventually have the ability to use the Sticky Shroom, and I can either, depending on what is played here, if they're going to be doing something that's going to be giving me trouble, I can maybe draw and resupply with this Signet just to set up better for next turn, but we'll also see what the Aerolith gives us. They're finding that they have to dig, though, and they do play their own Anansi, which means no matter what we flip with this, we can win with the Signet ability, putting boost on the Contortionist, or we can just play what is flipped, which is the Incaster, and yeah, that is a quick victory here. Just being able to turn one of these lanes made it very difficult for our opponent to overpower us in the time that we're playing, even though they themselves had a lot of well-lined up stats. Next, we'll be playing Throw Forest. In Throw Forest, I'm playing a lot of really powerful cards, things like Daedalus, Sandman, Aloe Vera. Each of these are powerful staples with powerful value attached to them. In general, I'm using this shell also to try out the dastardly unique Will-o'-the-Wisp combo with the Western Wind. The normal Will-o'-the-Wisp was errated, but the unique Will-o'-the-Wisp provides a powerful new combo. When you use Western Wind on your opponent's expedition, you get them to move back 1 lane, but they cannot move forward in the lane facing the Will-o'-the-Wisp. So this turns into a cheap Sakurabu's Fury. Both of these are also fine in their own right. The Willows do Willow things, but Western Wind can also keep me fighting over favorable colored lanes without needing to expend a Bubbles token. Anyway, that's the deck. Let's jump into the game. Okay, up against Soul with Throw Forest. I want to keep Daedalus. I feel like it's one of the most powerful cards in this deck, especially early game where I do care about the boost. I also really like things like Sandman, but those are better for the late game. I'll keep one Inkcaster, but ideally I'm doing like a 2-drop, 1-drop this turn, so I'm not keeping the Snowman or the second Inkcaster, and instead I'll keep either Mountain Guide or Bliss Bassist. I actually like the ability to play this for 1 on follow-up turns more than the growing 2-drop of the Bassist, so I'll do Inkcaster, Mountain Guide, Daedalus, and see how that goes. Okay, Fog, we'll just play a Guide, trade 1 for 1. Okay, a lot of really great cards here, including these 3-drops that I all like. So I'll just get rid of the Inkcaster. Something that in a lot of Lyra decks is often the best card, but here, not as much so. We are playing Throw Forest, so we're going to get rid of this forest. We'll turn it to Mountain based off of our Mountain Guide. But either one would have been viable here. But I think that I can actually save some of these other things for longer and maybe use the water later depending on what's there. But I'm kind of punished immediately, though if I had turned this into water instead and played the Nymph there, then I guess it doesn't matter. Like, this Mighty Djinn would have blocked me either way. It would have blocked me because the only thing I could follow up with is the Mountain Guide, so yeah, no punish. I'm happy with this play. It's fine. We're also allowed to pass first here, which means that Soul does not get a counter, and we continue trading 1 for 1. This is very good for us right now, though. I don't think I need 2 sleep effects right now, though I do like a sleep effect versus like Mighty Djinn. I'll get rid of the Twinkle so that we can potentially double play this turn, one of which is a Sandman. Nymph can go left here, and then they'll probably play Mighty Djinn on the right, which we can just counter with a Sandman. Now they don't get the ramp or the draw this turn. We're getting up 2-0. We're now fighting over, we can advance on water on this lane now, so it'll be more difficult for them to block this from us. They do start getting soul, though, if they pass first. An interesting game. Put back the bassist rather than the bigger thing in the Mountain Guide, especially with us having more mana right now. And start with the stall play. So play the Baby Mountain Guide on the left. And Harpooner does take our Sandman, which is unfortunate. Amarok comes out too, won't be able to discard anything this turn. But we can follow up with a Daedalus. We'll have enough power to take one of these lanes with the big Mountain Guide. Unfortunately, because we didn't hit the higher roll, we can't take the right lane. It would have been great to take the right lane with this because it would have also blocked them. But instead, we can go left and at least do a 1-2 turn. We'll stay ahead by 1 lane. We also just remain in a great position where everything that they're on for much of the game are colors that we fight very well over. I'd rather have the discount and return next turn, so I'll get rid of the Esmeralda rather than the Inkcaster. They both kind of give us a little bit of card advantage, but the Inkcaster gives us more control over what that advantage is. Okay, we'll start with a Daedalus and boost the Big Daddy Mountain Guide. We do hit the boost, which means that we start off tied, which is nice. Doing this kind of baits them to do the Amarok out this turn, which lets us know what's coming, and that's fine, and will mean that we can just block this lane with the Mountain Guide and advance. We don't have the ability to advance on both this turn, but if we can just advance 1 lane next turn, then we win. And we're well set up to have a ton of water in the lane that he's fighting over in water that will allow us to do that. So, feeling good. Okay. How much water can I make? This makes 4 to 5. This makes 4 can maybe resupply. 8 mana. So we can really do 3, 6 with either Aloe or Willow, and then the Inkcaster. So because we're not going to be able to anchor this turn, I'd rather have the Will-O-the-Wisp, which will be able to potentially discount next turn, which is more useful than the Aloe Vera, which I don't know if that's going to come into play. Just going to push right, try to get that 10 to 11 power, which will be very difficult for them to beat, rather than splitting the lanes, especially since Soul is likely going to be coming out this turn. It'll be gigantic when it does come out. That's a pretty good play from them, but it's 7 mana for 5 power, which is not that great. And we can do the Will-O-the-Wisp. They do have a follow-up play, but we are going to be at 10 or 11 power, and they're only 1 mana left. They're going to end up far short of our water that we're putting on the board here. So, yeah, GG. Next, we will play Throw Mountain. Throw Mountain is probably my favorite. It's got a lot of things going on. First of all, it has the most disruption out of anything. With Sea Nymphs, Forest Nymphs, and Melusines, I have lots of attacks on my opponent's long-term resources. I go harder on this line by throwing in Acapella Trainings and a Lyra Signet to really keep my opponent from having useful things in reserve. Secondly, a large amount of my characters in this list are water only, compared to the other lists which split colors more. Because of this, I'm trying winter outfits, as often this can play as a mono water list more than a hybrid. The uniques in the list provide more sabotaging effects, as well as a sleep effect, try to push through winds. Let's jump into the game. Okay, up against Lindaway. Forest Nymph is a little awkward. The main reason I'd want it is to play it against Moonlight Jellyfish turn 1 if he played that, so that he can potentially not get a sacrifice out of it. But if he is planning on doing Jellyfish, Maw, Gift of Self anyway, then Forest Nymph is awful. And next turn I'm going second. So I think I'm just going to keep an all water hand. Will-O-the-Wisp is good for probably securing a lane, and Sea Nymph will be a good sabotage follow-up, and I can also keep the Melusine to maybe next turn do a Will-O-the-Wisp Melusine follow-up, which will get me lots of water, get me some sabotage, and just give me some flexibility in my hand. They do a mobile armory. I'll play the Will-O-the-Wisp on this lane. Playing it on the companion lane may be good against Gift of Self lines, but it's not good against passing. And this makes it so this mobile armory is almost certainly staying in the reserve. All right, it's not going to the reserve, rather. And in fact, this Kali, which I didn't think about at the time, new card, would also have just beaten the Will-O-the-Wisp, which would have been extremely awkward. So we'll trade lanes here, but I'll be able to sabotage this Kali next turn from where it's pretty good in reserve, and they don't get the mobile armory back. We are Throw Mountain, so we will turn this mountain to water. And I'll get rid of the Acapella Training here. Good to have some forest now, especially that this is a green-only lane. Now, they hit our Will-O-the-Wisp with a common Suha, so that makes our follow-up pretty obvious. And we do a 2-1 lane change here, or lane trade here, which is good, especially since they're overflowing their reserve. So now that they're overflowing, we have more sabotage in hand. We can definitely hit at least one thing next turn. We can start putting on the pressure, which this blue-green deck is good at with all the sabotage and fleeting that it gives. And with that in mind, we'll get rid of the basist so that we have tons of sabotage available to us for the rest of this game. Luckily, they try to start by hiding against removal, which is worse against our sabotage. And we'll get rid of that jellyfish to not give them another opportunity to play from reserve. And yeah, they're now feeling the pressure because they are forced to play a Shiva, which will just tie here. We can just play a card to the right lane to go another 1-0 advance. We'll draw a card here, and they have basically no resources available to them. Especially with us being able to open up with a sabotage effect. And I'll get rid of the giant character there, instead opting to give something from their hand fleeting so that they continue to have nothing available to them. In fact, this is on water as well, means that we're very likely going to be able to fight over this or prevent them from ever moving here, which is really nice. They play Marie Curie, and they can sacrifice either the Ma or the Mobile Armory, but it's getting acapella trained, and we'll follow up with a CNM before we need to. Yeah, so I can't give that fleeting with my other acapella training, but I can just advance on this lane. So now I'm one lane away from winning. I'm definitely going to be on water. They scoop. Yeah, I mean, that was just a complete trouncing. Okay, those are the games. Thank you for watching. Again, you can see the deck list for the 3 decks I played in the description, and I will be next time playing another new hero from Skybound Odyssey. Thanks.